Breath of the sun, fire and flame, we are one.
Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Hilarious Species. Today you guys again with yet another PvP build. I did mention earlier that I was going to upload a higher damage build. So we're gonna get started with that. That is my training dummy, by the way, and that's gonna be my target slash victim that I will be using for testing purposes. So I can show you guys the potential of this build. This build can get some pretty high damage out, as well as exploit certain mechanics in the game. Well, not exploits, but it takes advantage of certain debuffs that aren't very used as much, mostly off balance. But we'll talk about that here in a second. Right now. Let's take a look at my stats. In this build, I am running more Magicka. I have 15.6. I am switching over to Triglyphs, so it will hit over 16k. I'll have about maybe 21k as well as 35.5. I am running the Warrior for my Mundus Stone. And my food here is Spring-Loaded Infusion. Some of y'all can probably take a guess what I'm running already. But if not, here we go. So I completely removed my old build to run this new build. It is 5-piece Truth, which you get from Darkshade Caverns 1 and 2. Bone Pirate's Tatter set, which you can get from Blackheart Haven. It's all in pen. And as I said, I will be switching over to full Triglyphs here in order to get a little bit more Magicka. And I am also running Bloodspawn. The food buff for this is Spring-Loaded Infusion, as you'll see here in a moment. And another good thing about this build is I'm running a Maul because I am using Tactician. And the thing with using Tactician, I kind of had to give up a little bit of CP here and there. So the Maul definitely helps in reducing the, it eases the CP allocation problem that I have. With my last build, I ran a lot of penetration, so now I don't, and the Maul helps counteract that. I'm also running 3 protective on my jewelry, and when I do run solo, I am running Brutality Joining Poison. It applies minor maim on my target. Most importantly, gives me minor brutality for a couple seconds here, as well as gives me a little bit of stamp sustain when I light and heavy attack. And with this build, you want to light and heavy attack a little bit more because it's going to hit harder. I'm also working off the Master's Bow. I have it infused with a Berserker Glyph, so I can get a little over 700 weapon damage without athletics and any of the other modifiers. But obviously, because I am running 5 medium with fighter skill ability such as Dawnbreaker, that does increase. The 3 main potions that I do run when I'm PvPing is Essence of Lingering Health, the one that gives you major vitality as well as like health over time, as well as the Tripod and the health stamina movability potion. Excuse me. As you can see right here, I'm actually working on trying to get everything procced here. As y'all can see, I have no issue maintaining 4k, a little over 4k weapon damage, and I can consistently keep it at a solid 5k as long as I keep my master's weapon procced with the Berserker Glyph. The one issue that you'll see here is it's one target, and I'm not open worlding, so I can't proc Tactician, and off balance does have a cooldown. It has a pretty long cooldown too, actually, so it's a little annoying to proc here when I'm demonstrating, but I promise you this, it could definitely proc quite a bit. And as you can see here, I have 5.5k weapon damage, so the damage is definitely there, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, with my CP, as I mentioned, I did have to make some sacrifices on CP, but I think overall I'm not giving too much up, and I'm getting a lot more back. So I am running 61 Thaumaturge, 40 in Precise Strikes, 49 in Mighty. I am mostly taking advantage of Last Stand, Opportunist, Precise Strike, and Exploiter. Exploiter is the main one, the main focus here, because whenever my target's off balance, I do 10% extra damage. It's just like a follow-up. It's almost a minor berserk pretty much. I am running 66 here in Master at Arms under Atronak, and I'm running 47 in Physical Weapon Expert, so my light and heavy attacks do 25% more damage. That can definitely help in terms of pressure and overall damage output in order, to kill pugs, or if you're trying to kill stubborn opponents. I do have a couple points here in Shattering Blows. It helps a little bit towards shielded opponents. But the main reason I have the points allocated the way I do here is so I can have Tactician, because when I'm out in open world, I do roll dodge a lot of projectiles and a lot of abilities, so it will keep my truth proc close to 100% up, close to 100% of the time, which is good because that means my heals are actually pretty strong. So going over my my health CP, I have 61 points in Ironclad, 52 in Resistant. I did take away medium armor focus because I did get some feedback from you guys stating that it's a lot better to put in points into resistances on damage types rather than raw physical resistance. And I have noticed an increase, in my tankiness doing that. So that is something that I've gone ahead and did. And as I said, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, so I do thank you guys for that feedback. I have applied it to my build here, as you can see. Moving on to the lady, I have 49 in Hardy, 49 Elemental Defender, and 40 in Thick Skinned. So I'm able to resist quite a bit of damage, dots, a lot of direct damage. Right now, things with Bash Necro, things like Bash Necros and Goliath, putting a lot of points into direct damage mitigation is actually pretty good. And then Thick Skin, it's good to have that against bleed and stuff like that, but I do have a lot more in direct damage mitigation, because I personally think that a lot of the burst does come from direct damage, so I did prioritize that. I'm also running a couple points in the healing received buff, but other than that, it's not a whole lot. Under the tower, so moving on to our stamina, under the tower here, I am running 51 in Warlord, 47 in Sprinter. In the Lover, I am running 64 in Mooncalf and 64 in Tenacity. So with Tenacity here, as y'all will see here in a second, I do get more resources back when I drop heavy attacks in. So as I mentioned with the damage CP on light and heavy attacks earlier, I definitely benefit. It rewards me for doing that. I also have 44 in Tumbling, because it's always useful to have extra points in roll dodge cost reduction. So with my current bar setup, guys, it's the same as last time. I am running Biting Jabs, I'm running Rally, Executioner, all that good stuff. So nothing's really changed. For my first ability, I'm running Rally, followed by Biting Jabs, Executioner. However, the difference between my bar setup on the last build and this one is actually toppling charge. Now with toppling charge, it interrupts targets. It also acts as a gap closer, and it does set my targets off balance, so it procs truth. Not just that, when they're off balance, I do take advantage of the Exploiter CP passive, so it's 10% extra damage when they're off balance, which is pretty. It's pretty freaking strong. It does more damage than minor berserk, so it's pretty nice. On top of that, I am running Dawnbreaker Smiting for my front bar ultimate, of course. Nothing much has changed on in terms of my front bar ultimate or my front bar setup overall. Now, with my back bar, however, I am going to make some changes to this. I am still running Shuffle, yes. However, I will no longer be running Shuffle as of probably the end of the month, once I get Sigil Order all the way leveled up and more skill points added onto my character. The reason why is I'm going to run Accelerate. Most importantly, I'm going to run Race Against Time, Now, what Race Against Time does is it is a snare and immobilization removal, as well as it does give me immunity to those debuffs for a couple seconds. So it's really good. But the main reason why I'm running this over Shuffle is Minor Force. What Minor Force does is it makes my critical damage hit 10% harder. So that's why I don't feel too bad about giving up 3% critical healing and damage from my CP, because I get 10% back anyway by running a Minor Force. So Exploiter plus Minor Force and Truth procced and Master's Bow procced. It's a lot of damage. So it's a pretty strong setup overall. Also, another thing is when you have a Sigil Order, ability slotted, so I have here in my back bar, I do get a shield. I do get a damage shield, and it lasts for a couple seconds, and it resets a couple seconds after you block. Blocking does trigger it, so it's really good for defense, or if like you're stuck in a pickle, and you need that extra shield to kind of cushion the damage so you can survive. So it's very useful. For my back bar setup, I'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm running Vigor on my back bar. Yes, I'm running a bow and it's infused. So my tooltip is kind of gimped here. Well, with Minor Mending, Major Vitality, and Combat Medic, which I'll cover Combat Medic here in a little bit. I don't see too much of an issue. And you know, it's a trade-off, but I think the trade-off is definitely worth it. And not just that, I am running another heal anyway, and that will be in the form of Extended Ritual. So a big thing about Extended Ritual, it did get a buff this patch. As I mentioned in my last video, it scales off of max stats, which for Stamplars, that's actually really good, and I do welcome that change. This is a change in the right direction, and it definitely has helped my survivability. I've been healing for a lot more, running that ability, so it's not just a purge anymore, it's also a good heal over time. Restoring Focus is my defensive buff. It gives me Major Resolve and Major Ward, and on top of that, it gives me 240 stamina every second. And as you can see here, my stamina recovery is kind of low, it's 1200. So running Restoring Focus definitely helps mitigate the sustain issue that I have. But that's why heavy attacking is also a thing, and that's why I put a lot of points into my Tenacity CP passive. So, you know, my heavy attacks give me a lot of resources anyway. Also, for the moment, my back bar ultimate is Remembrance. After I channel it, it gives me Major Protection. While I'm channeling it, it gives me 17k resistances. The one downside here, though, is it makes me stand still. So if I'm trying to run away, and I need to drop, a defensive ulti, it pretty much makes me stand still, and sometimes that can honestly get you killed rather than save you. Now with my passives here, as you can see, I'm running Assault and Support, but we'll talk that here in a moment. The big one here is Balanced Warrior for Adriac's Spear. We're gonna start off with that. That gives me a 6% bonus to my weapon damage, as well as spell resistance. And that stacks with Slayer from Fighter's Guild and Agility from Medium Armor. But we'll move on. We'll talk more about that here in a second. Now with Dawn's Wrath, I am running Prism, which gives me ultimate when I drop Power to Light. Restoring Spirit reduces the cost of my abilities, Magicka Stam and ultimate, by 4%, and that stacks with the Medium Armor passive for Stam-based abilities, as well as Imperial, which I get 3% from that, on top of Restoring Spirit. So it's definitely good to sustain this patch, especially running on an Imperial Stamplar. I also running Sacred Ground here for Restoring Light. Restoring Light acts as a snare whenever I drop an Extended Ritual. So it's like running Caltrops, which is good for if you're kiting and stuff, and it also rewards the fact that you're purging by applying a little bit of defense on top of it. Sacred Ground here, that's where it's not talked about a lot for Stamplars, but it's really good in terms of like if you're rezzing in a group fight. So I like having it. It's relatively useful. But here, we'll move on. So I am running two-handed, of course. So we're gonna talk about the passives here. Forceful, it does a little bit of damage when I'm light and heavy attacking. So if I'm in a group and let's say, we're jumping into another group, we're about to ulti dump. I just line up a heavy attack and I do a little bit of damage to anyone in the vicinity before my Dawnbreaker. So it's nice. It's honestly really nice, and it's not talked about a lot. It's mostly used for PvE, but anyways, I'm on a tangent here. The big ones here is actually heavy weapons. I am running a maul, so I do mitigate 20% of my target's resistances. Um, Seeing as I'm not running something like Spriggans, and I did give up my CP from physical penetration, so I can unlock Tactician. The maul definitely helps balance it out. It evens out. It evens out because I'm running a maul, so I'm ignoring resistances anyway. So it's not too bad. I'm still able to burn through pugs and, kill most players with relative ease. I'm not struggling too much, even after giving up that passive from CP. But moving on. With follow-up here, whenever I drop a fully charged heavy attack, it does an extra 10% damage, so if you're able to get off balance and follow up at the same time, and if they're undead, which then they take 20% more damage from the Dawnbreaker, even without that, they're already taking 20% more damage from your Dawnbreaker. It's off balance as well as follow up. So if they're undead, that's another 20%. So if you drop a Dawnbreaker on them, when you do all that, it can hit pretty hard, and it can honestly delete people pretty quick. Most importantly here, in my opinion, is Battle Rush. So whenever you finish off an opponent, your stam recovery does increase by 30%, and that helps overall with sustain, especially if you're fighting outnumbered, if you're soloing or whatnot. Now, with the bow passives aren't too important. I mean, they're important, but it's not like two-hand important, because two-hand's almost vital for the build. However, there are exceptions. Long shot's really good because of the further away you are, the more damage my poison injection and light heavy attacks from my bow, the more damage those things will do. But the big one here is Hasty Retreat. Hasty Retreat gives you major expedition when I finish roll dodging. So if I'm kiting or I'm line of sighting, if I roll dodge, boom, major expedition. I'm 30% quicker. And on top of that, I am running medium, so when I sprint, I run even faster. So you can be pretty quick here, and you don't have to run things like fjords or anything like that. I mean, if you do, then you're even faster. But at the same time, like, what's the point? Because you're not gonna have a lot of damage to begin with anyway. Anyways, we're moving on. I am using the first three passives for my secondary armor, so light and heavy. I'm running Grace, which reduces sprint costs by a little bit. And then the snares, it makes snares less effective. I also have Evocation, which increases my Magicka recovery, so it's good in terms of Magicka sustain, because I am running more Magic abilities than normal this time around. As well as Spell Warding gives me a little bit of spell resistance, and that definitely helps in terms of surviving fights, because that extra bit of resistance always helps. It's all about the little things. Every little bit helps, and it's better than nothing. Anyways, moving on. Now with medium armor, I am running Dexterity, Windwalker. I have it all maxed out. So Dexterity gives me a lot of crit, which is good for Stamplars because we already have a lot of crit built into us via Major Savagery. Windwalker gives me the sustain that I need in order to be engaged in fights. So on top of my heavy attacks and stuff, Windwalker definitely helps. I get a 20% bonus in stam recovery. Improved sneak, I'm not going to talk about that a lot because I don't really sneak too much to begin with. However, agility is it's a very important one because it increases your weapon damage by 15%. I'll backtrack on that here in a second. I also have athletics maxed out, so my roll dodging is actually a lot cheaper. And when I sprint, I'm able to move a lot quicker. But agility stacks with Balanced Warrior and Fighters Guild Slayer passive. With heavy armor, I'm running Resolve, Constitution, and Juggernaut. because it gives me a little bit more max health when I run Juggernaut, and it's really good because I'm running on an Imperial, so that 2% is actually quite it's actually a lot more than you think. Constitution, you know, it gives me a little bit of sustain when I take damage, and then Resolve, of course, every heavy armor piece that I wear, it increases my resistances, but it does it for both spell and physical, so you know, it goes hand in hand with the light armor passive in terms of spell resistance. So it definitely helps. You know, every little bit helps. You know, the one thing about builds is all about squeezing out as many benefits as you can, so your character can benefit as much as possible, so you can perform better. But anyways, talking about Fighter's Guild passives now. I am running all of them. Slayer, most importantly Slayer. And banish the wicked. Slayer gives me 3% for every Fighter's Guild ability I have, so I'm running Dawnbreaker Smiting. That gives me a 3% bonus. Not just that, I get 9 ultimate when I kill an undead werewolf or Daedra. So a lot of players are vampires and werewolves, so you get 9 ultimate from that. On top of the assault skill, and where you get into the 20, but I'll talk about that more in a second here. I have Undaunted maxed out, so I get a 6% bonus because I am running 5-1-1, so 5 medium, 1 heavy, 1 light. Now we're moving on to assault here. Continuous attack is a pretty important one. I like to keep that buff up as much as I can, especially when I'm running solo, because that definitely helps. I'll flip a resource and I'll get an extra 10% weapon and spell damage, as well as 20% extra recovery. So it definitely goes a long way. Reach, it helps because I'm running a bow as well as Power to Light. But most importantly, Combat Frenzy. That 20 ultimate per kill is really, really nice. Especially if they're undead. You get 29 ultimate. That's literally a third of a Dawnbreaker right there. So it definitely goes a long way to have those passives unlocked, because it can give you a relatively healthy uptime for your ulti dumping. So it's overall it's very useful to have those passives. Now, with support, the main one that I use is Combat Medic. Combat Medic, when you're by a keep, outpost included, your healing is increased by 20%. That's almost major mending right there, guys. So I of course am running that, and I definitely see the benefits from that, especially when I'm fighting by a keep or an outpost. As I did mention earlier, I am an Imperial. In my opinion, the Imperial race has the best raw statistic passives in the game. You get 2k health, 2k stam, and Red Diamond. Red Diamond did take a bit of a nerf compared to how it used to be. You used to get 6% health back whenever you did damage. Now it's just whenever you do direct damage, every 5 seconds you get 333 of each resource, which the health is affected by Battle Spirit, so it's not very strong, in my opinion. But that 4% cost reduction, that's actually really good. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but it's, you know, Imperial's actually still pretty strong. All right, and also another thing. So I'm gonna mention this right now. I am running Alchemy. I have Alchemy maxed out, but the big one here is medicinal use. It increases the uptime for my potions, which is very useful, especially if you're running lingering health, major vitality potions. It definitely makes a big difference in a fight. It definitely helps you survive quite a bit more, as well as sustain more if you're running tripods, because whenever you activate a tripod, it gives you a 20% bonus to all your recoveries. So with medicinal use, you definitely squeeze out as much uptime as you can in terms of those benefits. So overall, medicinal use is really, really damn good. Alright guys, overall, the stats in this build are pretty damn solid. 5.5k weapon damage with everything proc, continuous attack. It actually hits over 6k. I'm having 25k spell, 22k physical resistances, and then with Bloodspawn, I actually hit almost 32 and almost 30k in physical. So overall, it's very solid. It's a well-rounded build. It does take advantage of Minor Force, as well as the Exploiter from Off Balance, Tactician, which also procs Armor of Truth. So along with the the damage bonus you receive when truth is procced on top of the off balance. You can do quite a bit of damage to almost any opponent that you face. In the right hands, this setup is capable of doing quite a lot, just like my build Heritance and Hulking Draugr setup. Now, also with Master's Bow, the Caustic Arrow proc, it doesn't show on paper, but you can actually hit over 6k without continuous attack. It's just on a single target, similar to like Spell Strategist. So do with that as you will. But you know, with all that being said, that is my build video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and again, I do welcome any and all feedback. And again, if you did enjoy, please like and subscribe. It does help the channel grow, and I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. And you know, with all that being said, I wish you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Thank you.